Hi everyone. Today let's do a quick preview of the CPI report for tomorrow morning. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So the CPI report comes out tomorrow and we are expecting increases on the headline number, but the core number is expected to come down. You can see year-over-year rates are at 3.4 and 3.7 for core and the headline number. And you can see they highlight the core number is supposed to go down by 0.1 and the headline number is supposed to go up by 0.2, mostly on the back of energy. If you've been following this channel or markets at all, energy prices have been going up pretty steadily, pretty quickly. And we've also had a lot of Fed officials coming out and saying that the progress has slowed and they're definitely concerned. We've had some Fed officials saying that there could be no cuts or somewhere between 0 and 2 cuts. And you can see those numbers steadily rising December, January, and February. And really we need to get down to that 2% goal. Doesn't mean we have to be at 2% before we start to see cuts, but this rising trajectory is not great. And this is a critical CPI. If it comes in hotter than expected, I think it's unlikely we'll see cuts anytime before September and potentially not at all this year. Looking at the Goldman Sachs projection, they see air travel and sticker prices for vehicles going down and then shelter costs increasing, but just a little bit. And that is 1/3 of the CPI number. So that could give you a little bit of hope, but don't forget we still have gas prices, which are making up a significant move in that rising price, which we already talked about. And we still have food up 23% since April of 2020. So food still playing a big role in CPI. Again, going to be interesting in tomorrow's release. Moving over to fear and greed, you can see we stepped down to 61. Previous read was a 66, so it did decline a little bit, even with markets actually going up slightly. And you can see on the timeline we dipped, found a little bit of a rally, and then we're dipping here again. That is concerning. Most of the indicators are still either in greed or extreme greed. Put call ratio flatlined here. Volatility coming back down to neutral. Safe haven demand into fear here for just a moment, I would suspect, going into the CPI report. Obviously, CPI is going to dictate the price of bonds after tomorrow. But right now, you have a bit of a mixed bag. Safe haven demand in fear, while junk bond demand still in extreme greed. Moving over to seasonality, you can see for today, the 9th, supposed to be bullish, and we did get a little bit of a bullish move. And then going into the 10th, about a 0.5% decline. Into the 11th, another 0.5%. And then into the 12th, about a 1% down move from that 1 almost to the 2 level. So over the next couple days, could be anywhere from 2 to 2.5% seasonally. And then that would be the bottom of markets and then a rally into the rest of April. Based on the charts, again, CPI is going to dictate, but that's what we're looking at. Moving over to the economic calendar for today, 3-year note auction coming in at 4.54, pretty high there. Almost a full 0.25% higher than the previous read. And then looking at tomorrow, obviously core and headline CPI, 10-year note auction, definitely important. Federal budget continues to be interesting, and then Fed minutes later in the day. And then looking at Thursday, it does not slow down. We still have PPI on Thursday, which could absolutely move markets just as much, and then you get Fed balance sheet at the end of the day. Moving over to max pain, you can see options have gone up to 1.1 million for the Friday close. Put call ratio up at 2.35. Put wall has risen a little bit up to 515. Call wall still all the way up here at 528. So at this point, it does kind of look a little bit bullish. More puts in the market. Call wall up there. You can see 520 is a level, but it seems like we can get up there. Top of the puts up around 524 to 526. Right now, this looks a little bit more bullish today than it did yesterday. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps, you can see we got a massive dip early in the session, found a bottom, rallied right back to the same level. Finished almost unchanged, 0.12 on the SPY. Makes sense. Flatlining here into the CPI. The CPI is going to give us some direction. You can see this zone of resistance continuing to act as resistance. Got the 200 SMA there at 520.30. If it breaks above this level and pushes higher, that could be quite bullish. But right now, we're still at resistance going into CPI. So overall, really no change to the thesis. Hovering just at the 9 EMA, slightly above it on the daily chart. Testing the 21, testing VWAP, testing highly traded zone, catching a bounce from that area, but still below resistance on this shorter term downtrend. Looking at the Tasty charts just for a moment on the 4-hour, you can see we're still in that consolidation, touched that 144 EMA just for a moment, caught a bounce from that level. Looks like we could push to that upper ATR at 524, but based on the price action that we've seen, that's going to be a point of resistance. You can see that marks a clear top here as well as here, and we tested it one more time at a lower high, and if we get there one more time, I would expect a rejection. Moving over to the NASDAQ, you can see very similar thesis, dip low, touched the level 438, held that level, bounced right back to the 200, so still looking at a zone of resistance there, just below the 443.91 level, and you can see very similar on the daily chart, just barely above the 9 EMA, so we're holding above all the EMAs and SMAs on the shorter time frame. Momentum seems to be rolling to bullish a little bit. Maybe we get a test of that 446 level. RSI rallied a little bit, volume stepped a little bit higher, so some signs of bullishness. Again, CPI is going to matter more. And then looking at the Tasty charts, very similar setup with the ATR stop sitting at 446.60, so right at that level that we talked about on the other chart. Tested that level here, and you can see it marks a bunch of tops. Very important stop loss right there. Again, think we could probably get there. Whether we hold seems unlikely. We've been grinding on that 144, which has been support. Touched that first lower ATR band, trading at 437.57, bounced from that level. Looked a little bit stronger into the after hour session. Momentum not showing much anything, volume not showing much anything. So still neutral, maybe slightly bullish going into CPI. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell looking quite strong on the day. Pretty interesting. You can see the Russell was at 0.39 to the upside. Momentum rolling to bullish, quite strong. RSI looking good. Tested the level and you can see it's above it after hours. Let's look at the 4-hour chart there. You can see very steady higher lows and higher highs. Held the 21, so that's a nice setup. Tested that level multiple times, pushed higher. You can see it's above that 206.50 level. Above that, you have 208.22. Looks strong. Momentum's good. And then looking at the Dow, tested the lows, ended up negative on the day. Momentum did roll slightly. Volume coming through a little bit at that support level. So 55 EMA on the daily continues to be important. 388.16. And then I have a level there, 387.77. Moving over to the Mag 7, we've been here for over a month at this point, so we are at April 9th. We got here on March 7th, so it's been flat for the Mag 7. You can see it was bearish on the day, 0.34. We're below this trend line now. You got VWAP sitting at 355.40, and we did close below that at 355.30, so we're below all the short-term EMAs and SMAs, and after hours we're falling even more, so that's not good. And then you have a level here, 349.21. Overall, this does not look great. Momentum and RSI bearish. Looks like it's going to break to that 55 EMA at 337.05. See how that plays out, but this definitely looks like a topping pattern. Moving over to stocks that are moving today, we got Boeing on some more bad news. If you've been following Boeing at all, they've been a bit of a dumpster fire, and you can see the stock has reflected it. Had a top back here in December since everything else has been rallying, and Boeing has been down quite a lot. You can see about 30% during that time period. Not great, but this is a critical level. You can see we've bottomed here before. October low, right at this level, 177.55. And we are right back there testing it again. If it breaks, 158.53 to the low side. And you can see we pushed through the zone before, not a ton of volume in here. And if this breaks right here, it could go lower. Boeing looking like a bit of a sell. And then interestingly, we got BlackBerry here announcing a partnership with AMD, and they rallied a little bit on the day, so 7.64%. BlackBerry, not a super great company. You can see it's been in a very long-term downtrend, but you do have a solid base here, so I made some levels. $2.57, critical level. It's held that. It's held a little bit of an uptrend. You have a midpoint here, so you got a double bottom. Breaking to that level. If it can hold above 330, I think that could be interesting. You can see 330 is an important pivot point back from here. Tested that 200 and then broke down. If it can get above that and hold, then maybe you got some legs here on BlackBerry, potential play, at least for a couple days, not necessarily a longer term investment. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, you can see Apple popping a little bit here today, 0.72. It's been at this critical zone. You can see it. Tested it here at beginning of March, bounced, testing it again, finding a little bit of strength, but still does not look great. Really need it to hold. We've talked about it a million times. A very important zone here for Apple. And then Tesla breaking out here from this downtrend line. Let's go ahead and go full screen on Tesla today. You can see it's been in this very clear lower low setup. But now you have a bit of a double bottom. Nice solid base there around 162.10. 2 very strong days on that robo-taxi news. We're breaking this short-term downtrend line. We're back above this short-term uptrend line. 55 EMA there at 184.30. This kind of looks like a decent setup. 177.70 is the level that you're finding resistance. But if we can get a break above that 182 area, push to 188.50, this could be a decent setup. You can see it still has some downtrend lines in here, and it is still a downtrend right now. But if you can get a break of this zone here, we could push back to that 214 area, back at the 144 EMA and 200 SMA. So you can see the volume profile as well. Important zone, not a ton of volume here until you get back up to that 214, 215 area. So potential play if we can get a nice little break. Maybe Tesla rockets a little bit higher over the next couple of days. Moving over to Microsoft and Google, we haven't talked about these for a while. Microsoft, again, been sideways chop, so nothing crazy here. Was positive on the day, 0.4. It looks like it could be pushing to that next trend line up around 430, 460. Could give you a couple of dollars potential on Microsoft. And then looking at Alphabet, nice breakout. Clearly above these highs, gapped through it. Positive on the day, 1.24. They have some AI news, some AI catalysts, so that's obviously strong for the company. Looks like this could potentially push to the trend line up around 164. That would be interesting. Give it a couple more percentage points of positive. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. So Alphabet looking like a nice play, interestingly at the same time as Tesla. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, we got staples bouncing a little bit off of that 74 level. We knew it was an important level. Tested it a couple times, got a nice little bounce, closed on the high, 0.49, momentum rolling to bullish, RSI looking a little bit bullish. At this point, you would expect it to be met with sellers at the next level at 75.40. And you can see here, if it rallies and goes up to that SMA, that's where you would expect to find rejection. But right now, looks solid off of support. And then discretionary also finding some legs. Big wick down to that 180.10 level. Again, critical zone. Closed above all the EMAs and SMAs, rallying on the back of that Tesla news up after hours. Makes sense. Let's look at that on the 4-hour chart. You can see a leg down, touch the 21 EMA. Again, nice setup. Pushed higher. It's above all the short-term EMAs and SMAs here on the 4-hour chart. Above that, you have 185.36. So looks a little bit stronger again here today than it did yesterday. Moving over to utilities and gold, just like we talked about yesterday, both of these continuing to do well, 0.55 on both of them actually. Breaking the level 65.75, above that 66.81. Looks like utilities are set to go higher, momentum RSI bullish, and then gold gapped higher in doji, obviously waiting for that CPI data. That'll be interesting. Doesn't look super great after this very extended move. You can see doji up here, at least a little bit of downside and sideways chop. I don't think this is going to collapse or anything, but it could pull back to the 9, maybe even to VWAP. Otherwise, it still looks very bullish in structure, just a little extended. Moving over to 20 and 50-day averages here for breadth, you can see both of these were positive on the day, getting back above 51.75. Closed above it yesterday, but it looked like a wick rejection. You can see we closed on the high here today, so that looks more bullish. Momentum swinging to bullish. Looks a little bit better again here today, so seeing some short-term bullishness coming through. 50-day average, it was bullish, but you can see we're right at that 21 EMA. Very important. Needs to get above that if we're going to continue this rally. Momentum rolling to bullish, RSI just below the SMA, similar to the 20. Critical zone here. If we see a break and we can hold those gains, then we might see some pushes to some higher highs. But right now you can see sideways chop at resistance. Moving over to 200-day breadth. I don't talk about this chart every video, but I did find it relevant here. You can see many days of downside. Tested the 76.04 level. Held that level. Couple of days of bullishness, still could find resistance at the trend line, but momentum pushing to bullish, RSI pretty much at the SMA, so could reject from there, but right now it does look okay. If this breaks here, I would expect another push to that 91 area, and that is typically the top of markets. You can see you can get into the zone. You can hang out here for a while, but eventually you will see sells. We're not there yet, and it does seem like we might have that final leg here pretty soon. Moving over to yields, we got a little bit of a sell, so we got a wick rejection on the 10-year, pulled back to the level 4.35. We'll see how that balances out with the 10-year note auction tomorrow. 2-year looked really strong yesterday, closed on the high, ended up with a down candle, bearish engulf, momentum fading a little bit right at the 200 SMA. So maybe we're going to get back into this consolidation a little bit. Still showing higher highs and higher lows, so could just pull back to the 21, establish a higher low, and then push again, but did show a bit of a rejection ahead of that CPI data. Moving over to the dollar, you can see we did get another wick rejection around that 104 area. Wicked the low back here on Thursday, wicked the low again here on Tuesday. You can see those wicks to that 21 and 55 EMA area. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish, so we're still seeing a little bit of a pullback. I still feel like we're going to see a higher low setup here, and then we're going to get another push up to this next level. Maybe 105.5 was just too high for this wick. We really barely overthrew this previous high, but it seems to be holding right here. Obviously, the CPI is going to determine the direction of the dollar at this point, but it seems like it's holding right here for now. Moving over to bonds, what a reversal. So we did see a little bit of a move higher on J&K, and that did give us the catalyst for some bullishness here today. That did continue, so this does look like we're in a bit of an upswing, at least in the short term. And then looking at TLT, gapped higher and rallied, got back above this trend line, momentum's flipping to bullish a little bit. I don't really think this means anything. Still very much a downtrend, could just reject from here. But I do like this move on J&K. I think that could push to 94.80, which should give you another day or two of potential bullishness. Moving over to volatility, we see another bearish candle. So it's pulling back to that 14.7 area. Momentum rolling to bullish. RSI looking for some support on that SMA. It is still holding at a pretty elevated level compared to what we've been seeing. Obviously, with CPI and the earnings season coming up, it does make sense for this to kind of hold a little bit of a higher volatility, but it is hanging out here. We'll see how this looks. Right now it's bearish. I think we could find some support at 14.7. Moving over to my accounts, I was quite cautious on the day. I was taking off and putting on these puts on my Q's position. It did take out some of the volatility, and then we got that really strong rally into the end of the session. I ended up putting on a 438 for tomorrow, so pretty low out of the money. You can see almost 1% below for $1.20, so that was a decent little credit there. I'm still a little bit concerned going into CPI. We'll see how it plays out tomorrow. If CPI comes in okay and markets are fine, then I can move this position back into my more normal position, maybe some covered calls and puts. We'll see how it plays out. And then with the IWM, no changes, still holding this 205, might roll that out tomorrow. We'll see how that plays. And then for my poor man's covered call, rolled that out to 437, so rolled that up $1. You can see that's already in a bit of a loser. We'll see how that plays. I might roll that out to Friday to get a little bit closer to out of the money. Depends on what we see from CPI, obviously, but still making a little bit of money here slowly on that poor man's covered call, as well as these Q's positions. So overall, about $100 on the day. Let me know down in the comment section what you think we're going to see for CPI. Are you bullish on the report, or is it going to sink markets? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.